Our final public hearing this evening is in the Mount Vernon District. It is a rezoning and a final development plan. The applicant is LMC Alexandria Crossing Holdings.
The 7.44 acre subject property is located at the intersection of Richmond Highway and Shields Avenue within the PennDOS CBC. As you can see, the site is largely undeveloped, but does contain several single-family homes and one business. Directly south is a 90-unit mobile home community built in 1957.
Members of the Planning Commission, again, my name is Lynn Strobel. I represent the applicant. On this project, it was certainly a large undertaking and really wanted to work with the community on this. One of the closest communities is Springbank. We met with them and we did receive their recommendation of approval. In addition, we met with the Bellhaven Association Board, who had no objections to this, and we had multiple meetings with the committees of the Mount Vernon Council and did receive their endorsement.
So readily apparent as you look at the site and also in your report, you note that the PennDOS Terrace manufacturing home site is directly south of this. Commissioner Clark referenced the fact that this was part of the overall consideration as staff considered this and the applicant. But what was the conversation with that community? And maybe kind of taking us a step back, Embark has identified this area for redevelopment. What does the comp plan specify with regard to that community, its future, or those parcels, their future?
Right. So those parcels are part of the whole of Land Unit E, which is the main redevelopment area of the Embark Plan. Just to the southeast of them is the, southwest, is the Walmart site. And all of that is sort of part of the same grid of streets. So this graphic that shows the street network kind of encompasses all of those blocks. So yeah, it is envisioned for a larger redevelopment of pretty high density mixed use up to, I think that site gets as high as 7 or 10 stories.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I want to kind of make sure I understand that whole context. So Ms. Strobel,
Sure.
Did you have conversations with that neighborhood?
We had conversations with the property owner, and this type of housing, is a little bit unique because the residents who are there are just renting a spot, if you will. So the actual property is owned by someone else. So we did not have access to those individual names of the people who live there. And so we did have conversations with the property owner. We had offered to bring letters that she could give to the residents, or we could deliver them to the residents. She was opposed to that. She called me and said I guess when there was some discussion earlier, many years ago, about this particular residential development being redeveloped, there were poor reactions from that for the community in opposition when the actual property was being talked about being developed. And she did not wish to undergo that stress. And she was adamant that she did not wish for us to send letters to that community.
It's disappointing, to be candid with you.
It's a difficult issue, honestly.
What we learned, and perhaps it's not the same circumstance here, but I'm guessing it is, that these are long-standing homeowners. They own their homes. They just don't own the land on which the home sits.
Right.
They will, without question, be impacted by this development. We have a commitment to give neighbors access to information that's going to affect their future.
I think my feelings on this are pretty well known and understood. I think that these folks are not at the table. They may not own their pad sites, but they own their homes. They are, for all intents and purposes, they are homeowners, and they should be treated as such, and they should be treated with the dignity and respect that goes along with how we reach out to homeowners. This particular instance of the landowner not wanting to reach out to the homeowners is very much consistent with other mobile home parks in Fairfax County every time something comes up. But their voice must be part of this. I would say this to your client, Lennar, they're on the Manufactured Housing Task Force, and there are representatives from this community on that task force. So they should be able to communicate with the residents of this park. They're on the same task force. And I think if they had done the appropriate outreach, they would have quickly ascertained who to speak with in this community.
And I appreciate where you're coming from, but I will also say that I received a I received a call directly from the owner of the adjacent property telling me not to send out letters. So we did work with the owner of the property, and when I was directed specifically not to do that, I don't think that would be fair for me to do it.
Okay, understood.
So it was not something that we ignored, but we felt we were in a bad spot because the property owner specifically said, told us not to do that.
Understood. And
So that is a difficulty.
Well, okay, fair enough. But staff can also help in that regard too. I mean, the government serves a purpose and a function, and that is to protect the citizens and residents in this county. And so we should not be, this is also how we get into a public hearing or decision only, and you have 30 people call in because they're angry and they just found out about something. I understand the constraints that you have. I just think with some more effort and imagination, we can reach these folks, and your client is on the Manufactured Housing Task Force with members of this community.
I just wanted to go back to the outreach part. Commissioner Lagana's points are points that we all are concerned about. So let me just recap in case I got this wrong. You tried to communicate with the residents of the manufactured housing community, but the landowner didn't want you to.
Correct. We had actually, I'd actually drafted a letter, but, again, the issue is I don't have addresses for these individuals because they're not in the tax records. I don't have names or addresses. And we had contacted the property owner to talk about the outreach and offered to send a letter. I even had said we would have someone come down to the site and distribute it, and the owner was not interested.
But at our last meeting, Carla Bruce gave us a reminder on One Fairfax, and part of that was outreach. And during that time, Mary McFadden with the NAACP, who's very vocal on this issue and very concerned about the lack of outreach to mobile home manufactured housing owners, made that point very strongly. So I'm wondering if you tried to reach out to any of the advocacy groups that might have been able to get in touch with the owners.
I just felt that being directed by the property owner not to do anything, I felt rather constrained by that.
Okay, well, we'll have to figure out how to make that happen, right, Commissioner Lagana?
Yes. I would just add, too, that part of this could be solved for because they're on the same task force. It just blows my mind. I mean, they literally meet every month, they're on the same task force. They're there, and the residents from the park are there, and the contact is there. It's the will. It's literally the will to reach out to folks and just not.
I think it's a reason why.
It's easy to do.
Getting on the subject of notification for residents, I'm reminded of what Commissioner Clark and I went through in the SSPA process for another community of trailer homes, and an almost natural evolution of an advocacy group through that process. So I'm wondering where that advocacy group is this time, and I think they were tremendously and quickly organized when we went through that particular process.
I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Sargent's statement. When we have other developments, we always try to reach out to the neighboring community, regardless of whether it's their property that's being redeveloped. So I think this community deserves the same opportunity and respect.
Ms. Strobel and I as well as NDCCA, we've had numerous of conversations around how do we contact those individuals that are renting the pad site there where they have their mobile homes or manufactured housing. But there were numerous attempts, and even through the supervisor's office, and working with the owner of this property to make sure that the tenants of this property was aware of the redevelopment. So, I mean, we gotta respect the business owner as well, and we can't dictate, or we don't want to be dictators of other people's business and businesses. We have a board date of February the 8th. I have been in contact with Supervisor Stork's office for the Mount Vernon District.
Yeah.
And he's aware of these issues that we have.